This is Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society of BC, brought to you by Sitka Gear. Come along as we bring conversations that matter to you into the high alpine. This episode is sponsored by our conservation partner, Yeti. Thank you, Sitka Gear and Yeti, for investing in healthy wildlife and sustainable ecosystems. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back in the studio for another episode of Talk is Sheep. And Tysen, if we could just share some of the conversations we have offline, and those are always the best ones. And so honestly, I'm co-hosting today. We've got Hannah Erickson, kind of her first kick at the cat as a co-host on the Talk is Sheep podcast. So welcome, Hannah. It's great to have you on today.
Thank you very much. I think my input will be minimal. We'll leave it to the pros.
Nope, you're talking lots. And Tysen, you're no stranger to our wild sheep community. We've got Tysen Bjorn, owner of Custom Pack Rigging, but really sheep hunter, tremendous dad, conservationist. I'll stop there because I'll just embarrass myself and probably embarrass you. But welcome to the podcast, Tysen. Great to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Well, man, you've come into our space in the wild sheep world and just sort of taken it by storm with you've taken over the custom pack rigging. You bought the business a few years ago and been really involved. I just want to share with our listeners sort of your background, where you came from. I know you're a diehard, passionate horse hunter, sheep hunter. Welcome to the podcast. Let's get into it. The one thing I don't know is Scandinavian at heart. You've got the beard of a Scandinavian, and you've
I'm a little bit of a mix. I guess 3/4 German and only a quarter Danish. So I guess the beard holds up the quarter Danish side. I guess.
German/Danish doesn't get more imperialistic than that, does it? So,
or stubborn, however you want to put it. Yep.
Awesome. Well, hey, let's kick things off and let's just hear a little bit about Tysen. There's so much that I want to unpack there, but I kind of like to hear about your journey and maybe how you got into hunting. And I want to it ties in really nicely because your son Jeremy he's a part of our sheep world too, and he's become a mini legend. He'll be in your shadows for a few years, but I don't imagine it'll be long, and he'll be out in front of those shadows too. But let's just talk about your journey into the hunting space and how you got involved.
Well, the reality is that it was my opa and my uncle that hunted really at the end of the day, and they were meat hunters. At the end of the day, it was and back in when my grandfather and grandmother immigrated, it was the way to keep the family fed, really. So a little bit different start for me whereas I am today, where I classify as my hunter. So my early years, we grew up in the Lower Mainland, so we weren't a northern family, but there were stories of my opa traveling to Prince George to go get a moose with his Volkswagen Bug, because that was his commuter car, and that's how we put meat in the freezer for the family, and in those days it was the biggest moose he could shoot because it was the most meat in the freezer. For me, hunting started at officially at 9, and that was in the alpines of the back end of Lillooet, which was kind of uniquely weird because custom pack rigging was ran out of Lillooet for 23 years. So that was kind of an interesting one where I drove by the building for so many years. And horses were never, I didn't grow up with horses. Nobody in my family are horse orientated. It was just at the end of the day, I guess at 9, I got an opportunity to get up in the alpine and chase after muleys, and I guess the disease started. And as the years grew on, the passion to continue to enjoy that adventure, that the nature aspect. It wasn't even so much about killing something or harvesting per se. It was just about the adventure. And so that's what drove me as my years went on, and as I became a teenager, adult, and then working around the clock, making an extra kind of dollar, and being able to expand my adventures to another level.
So that first hunt you did when you were 9 years old, obviously alpine mule deer hunt.
Yeah.
What did that look like? Did you guys kill anything on that hunt? What was
No,
that trip like?
I shot a grouse. Yeah, I shot a grouse, which would have been I guess it would have been probably my first grouse I shot. But no, we didn't shoot a buck. I actually think that years after it was definitely not a space. And my uncle was like, the aspect of it was a 4-point season. If it had 4 points, it was down. If it was any buck, it was down. But so that kind of terrain taught me real fast that, it was big country, and there was a whole different skill set. It wasn't riding around in the pickup.
Is that what fueled your desire for adventure? And obviously you're a sheep hunter now, you're a horseback hunter,
yeah,
which is kind of like, okay, there's pretty extreme stuff. There's the sheep hunting and goat hunting, that those are two sort of apex adventures, and then throw some horses in on top of it just to make it interesting.
100%. So I mean, sheep has been a big thing for me for many years now. I mean, I've been a member with you guys for well before obviously buying the business. It was I think I can't remember what year it was, but I remember reading an article about sheep hunting in one of the outdoor magazines about just where to find sheep and what their habitat was. And it was an article that was like, you know what? And I was like, I need to start looking into these animals. I need to start investigating what they're all about, and that was kind of maybe about that same time, because it was another article that I picked up around 2004, where there was an article about a father and son hunt that they got up in the Dees Lake area. They went for moose, and there were some pictures, and it was like, prior to that, I hadn't really ventured further past Prince George, and then it kind of hit me, and I'm like, we got to go north. And that was another one for sure. When I convinced my uncle to get up that way, and we made a trip, and that was when the real, drive kind of came in, and you got a chance to drive up that Cassiar highway, and it just, the country was just breathtaking, and there was no going back.
What year would have that been, give or take? That
would have been 2004.
Okay, so that was your first trip up north, and that was you guys backpacked in off the highway, or?
Well, actually, it was a situation of a drive-in. We were able to get trucks in some way to set up a base camp, and then we had quads. Yeah, even in that trip there, you learn real fast where it's like, even back in 2004, and then regulations for motor vehicle use, only so many 400 meters off the road, and of course, shot a moose 3 kilometers from the road.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, and in that era, and my uncle, Hannah and I were talking about this today, earlier. I didn't have no fancy pack sack. I had a Trapper Nelson. Huh. Good old 1-inch webbing shoulder straps. It makes you come to realize it a different way, and that's again the adventures, and those memories that I obviously try to share with my son. And it kind of ties into the business now, because, don't get me wrong, the gear that we have today is amazing, and it makes a lot of things a lot easier, and makes a lot of people be able to experience this kind of stuff. But, some parts of this, we it's been done for hundreds of years has been done, and we've kind of, I don't want to say we've gotten a little bit soft, but it's gotten comfortable. And sometimes we need to have a moment on the hill, and we gotta have that moment to see where our passion and our grit really sits. Are we going to continue on, or are we going to turn back because, I don't know, we're getting sore, or something hurts, or the weather, or you're cold, or we just it's I guess in some ways for me it's so much. The whole experience is so much more than just the harvest or the animal.
Well, it's certainly an achievement, right? And it's interesting. This is the age-old debate because you look back into those pictures in the '60s, '70s, '80s, and there's people out there in their jeans and their running shoes, and they're killing giant rams or they're killing whatever, right? And it's like, but then the other side of it is like, well, there's a safety issue, and then there's more. It's more challenging now because there's more competition, and so that it is an age-old debate, but I think at the end of the day, there's guys that are still like out there hunting, and there's that's the cool thing about the society. You go to our show, right? You walk around Penticton or the north, and there's killers there. They're cold-blooded killers. They kill giant rams. I got a text from a buddy on the island here the other day, and he just like a 10-year-old ram, and he's like, it's just a ram, Kyle, and he's not being cute, trying to be like, oh, look at me. Like, no, he's that guy that goes out every year. He doesn't have the greatest gear. You'll never see a single thing ever posted on social media. He, it probably was hard for him to share that picture with me, but he also knows I'm not going to show it to anyone. Yep. And, that's the community we're in. The guys that are out there getting it done, and gals too. I'm not I'm speaking holistically here,
we'll let that one slide.
Generally, but, that's a cool thing. Like you walk around Penticton, and you're like, oh yeah, that guy. I know those guys, and they're like every year they kill. They kill a giant old mature ram, or they just don't kill anything, and they could have killed 10 8-year-olds if they wanted to.
Well, 100%, right? I mean, nothing. As you kind of get into it more and you start to enjoy it, you come to realize that you don't want another 8-year-old ram on your wall.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want a 7-year-old. It doesn't make a difference what he looks like. It's like we want to make sure that we are doing our best for the bands. At the end of the day, that we are harvesting those older rams. I mean, that's my big belief at the end of the day. And I've harvested one ram in my time, and if it ends up being the only ram on my wall, then it tells a great story.
Yeah, well said. I'm the same, Tyson, exactly. Hannah, I've never asked you. I know you've killed. Is it one ram you've killed, or
just one? Yeah, just one for me. Yeah, and I'm of like mind. I'm holding out for something a lot older for my next ram.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like you kind of get in a gray area, and I want to clarify a little bit for our listeners too. Is that people are like, oh, you talk about these old rams and everything, and like we're not passing judgment. The big part is like you take a mature, like or a legal ram. Like that's like if you're going to do anything, just make sure it's legal for starters. And if somebody decides to harvest an 8-year-old, but what concerns us about our community, I think, at least me, and I think about a lot, and I hear other people talk about it, is somebody that goes out and shoots maybe a 6-year-old that's legal. There's areas where genetically they'll grow in 6 years, they'll be past the nose, they'll be legal, and someone goes out and harvests those type of rams year after year after year, and it's challenging, right? It's challenging for the resource, and it does potentially threaten sheep hunting down the road. So it's like, just do we need to do that? Is that the right thing? If your goal is putting meat in the freezer, maybe 6-year-old rams is not your best venue. Maybe just go hunt deer or something, or go hunt sheep and enjoy it. And if you see one that's worth taking, then so it's a bit of a judgment call. It's a bit, and there's people that are really harsh, like, oh my gosh, that person shot a 6-year-old, and even though it was legal, and they have a real problem with it. And then there's, I'm not as hard to over on that, but I think thinking about what is the long-term impact on the resource is important. Probably, I think that's the most important thing.
Absolutely, and obviously some areas are a little bit more generous than others, as far as genetics and age, and But I mean, at the end of the day, let's be honest. I would have to say that none of us sheep hunters are sheep hunting to fill the freezer.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's where we do get categorized in the outside world now, that sheep hunting could be classified as a trophy hunt.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, for a lot of us, I think I can speak for is that it's the sheep that get us out to push ourselves to the limit. it's they tend to sustain themselves in territory that is not forgiving. So, it just gets us off the couch, per se, and it gets us into some pretty amazing country and allows us to enjoy some pretty wild adventures. And, even coming home and not having a set of horns on your pack, you still come back and go, well, that was a pretty amazing trip. And usually, you're already planning next year before you've even hit the pickup.
100%.
Yeah.
Or at least for some of us, at least, I guess.
No, I'm with you. Well, and you're planning it on your trip. You're already talking, hey, where are we going next year? What are we doing? And then there's an aspect of it. You can't wait to get off the mountain, but the second you're off, you're like, shit, I want to get back on that mountain, right?
Yeah, I mean, even myself, I got an opportunity to get out this year for 20 days. And, I struggled for well over 20 days readjusting back to society.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even at the end of the 20 days, I could have stayed longer. I mean, it was coming. You're looking in your bin and your meals are getting lower. Maybe the weather was getting a little colder, but there's a part of it where it's like, oh shit, it's coming to the end. It's a little bit depressing.
Yeah. Well, and that's awesome that you can do that, like 3 weeks. That's a good and proper trip. And it's interesting. I have a lot of people reach out, and I'd like to hear your guys' perspective on this one. But people say, "Oh, I've got a week of holidays." I'm like, "Oh, that's really, really difficult, right?" Like, okay, so you leave the Lower Mainland or wherever you're at on a Friday, right? You get off work and you drive. Maybe you drive all night, like I've always done. You show up on Saturday. And so you're 2 days before you're into sheep hunting for sure, and you're 2 days out. So that really leaves you 3 days to kill a ram, and it's just not going to cut it. Like, so kind of the thing that I've always talked to people about is, take 2 weeks. Like, you need 2 weeks. Like 7 days is just not going to. Well, I guess realistically with the weekend you've got a couple extra days. So you got 9 days or whatever, but still, it's just not going to cut it, right? You just can't. And the problem is, the worst thing is you see that legal ram and you're like, okay, he's just a day over there. And then you're like, no, but I got to go back. I got to go back. That's the worst feeling in the world. Right. So, my recommendation is carry a sat phone. That way you can call in sick from the mountain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, that is one of the benefits of technology today, Yeah.
Just for the record, I have done that before too. So,
well, I guess I've been lucky. I've been self-employed since I've been 21, so it's not too hard convincing the boss,
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's about priorities too, right? Some people are like, oh, I can't afford that or whatever. And it's about priorities. And, if your family's more important or you've got family events or you got to do something with your significant other or whatever, for sure. Like, absolutely. It's priorities. But if you really want to do that and be successful, like, you can take the 2 weeks too. So it's about prioritizing. It's the same thing too. We see this, and we're really blessed here in BC, obviously, with our community because we have a general open season. Or pretty generous LEH. There's areas where it's maybe they don't even have sheep in their, like they live in a state that doesn't have sheep, or it's a once in a lifetime draw. So now you're a guided hunt. Well, how the hell do you afford that? Well, you start saving, just like anything else. Is it important? Is it a priority? You save, right? So or you play the raffles, that sort of stuff. So it's about prioritizing what's important to you. And yeah, we're pretty darn lucky here in BC. I will say that. So
we are, but I mean, depending on how hard you play, in that hunting world, I think about it sometimes, especially when you jump into the horse world now. It's probably cheaper to hire an outfitter. For some of us, when you start to think about the commitment that it takes. But it's like, I guess that stems, on my end too. So. I chased animals, sheep, mountain animals in general. I mean, I'll also admit that I enjoy my moose hunting, but sometimes you find the moose where the sheep are, so you kind of moose hunt and sheep hunt at times at the same time, and that's what got me with the horses. It was because it was was that true adventure that I wanted to get into. And like I said earlier, I didn't grow up with horses. I didn't have a lot of experience on that end. And then as the years were kind of ticking along, it was kind of tapping me on the shoulder, where it was like, you got to get this done. You gotta experience it. And I kind of got my foot into that realm, and which is kind of a hard one. It's a all or nothing. It's you can't. You can borrow a buddy's quad, but you're not about to borrow a buddy's string. And there's a lot to come with it. And and being a horse hunter, it's 365 days a year. You don't get to put that quad, you don't get to put that horse, in the shed and, pull the battery and put some fuel stabilizer in it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Tysen, can we back up? And so you did that first trip in 2004, and you did your moose hunt, you were alpine hunting, but you ended up killing a moose. Yeah. When did you get horses? When was your first trip in the mountains with horse? When did you get your first ram? What year? And then when did you start horse hunting?
About the same time, 2020.
Okay.
Yeah. I harvested my first ram in 2020, which was a pretty amazing trip. Also made friends with a new hunting partner at that time. We kind of met kind of in the north, kind of made it happen. And then headed home. Well, actually, there was a little bit of there's maybe a good point to actually talk about. On my way home, ended up getting in a little bit of a fender bender. I ended up in a head-on collision on my way home from that hunt. So I was on the high of my life, essentially, with a ram in the trailer, and ended up a gentleman crossed the line just south of Quesnel and had a major head-on collision. Luckily, to some good friends, Omer and Garrett came to my rescue with a trailer and helped me gather my life up on the side of the road. But it was also that moment too where, you come to realize that, you can be on the best day of your life and it could be your shittiest day. And, that's what drove me, where it was now or never. And I mean, my life in general has always been pretty right foot, driven. And that was just what I needed to basically go like now or never, and it just started really chasing after that passion of horses, which was a pretty big undertaking. I'm not going to lie. Here we are at 2025, so 5 years, and I've kind of accomplished. I don't want to gloat, but I've done a lot in a very short period of time.
Well, I'm absolutely blown away that you started this passion 5 years ago. Like I assumed that you've been hunting with horses for 20 years. Like it was sort of right after that 2004 hunt, you started getting some horses and wading your way into it, because you've owned custom pack rigging for 2 or 3 years now. This
was our third season. Yeah.
So you kind of switched gears pretty quickly there, buddy.
Well, I mean, and no different than the amount of horses that I've got at the current moment.
That was my next question. How many horses do you have right now?
I think somewhere in the 15 mark, somewhere in there.
That's so. When you ask them how many horses do you have, and they have to think about it, that's a sign that they got a ton of horses.
Yeah. Well, I've got, and the thing is that I've made some pretty amazing friends. I was able to get a couple, older horses in the beginning, that had some miles that helped me accomplish a bunch of trips. Got some confidence under me, but then I came to realize that you can't buy a good horse typically. The horses that are for sale, usually have some quirks about them, because if they were a good horse, they wouldn't be for sale.
Right. Yeah.
So then I started getting into, a lot of yearlings and babies, and now having my own brood mares, and along the way, making a lot of cowboy friends and learning a lot of the cowboy ways. And, so the learning curve in the last 5 years has been steep, about as steep as chasing after sheep, yeah. So, but it's been nothing but a lot of fun. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the business. So you got the hook in 2020. So just to clarify, you had a buddy that had a string. He invited you to come on a horseback hunt.
No.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what the catalyst
So in
was.
2020, I was like, I'm going to buy horses. What's that?
Oh, sorry. I think my internet connection is a little bit slower than you guys are. So yeah, quite a big delay. I should just keep my mouth shut. Yeah, no, I wanted to hear what the big catalyst was for you. What actually was the driving force that got you into horseback hunting?
Well, the thing is that I wanted to get into it for many years prior to 2020. Like it was at my doorstep. It just never came all together. The right opportunity didn't come together. And I'll be honest, living down at the coast here, is not quite the right horse community to make a friend, that maybe hunted with horses, so it was a little bit daunting. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm now separated with her, but at the end of the day, I also started a new relationship in 2020, which she was kind of that horse girl. So it was kind of an opportunity where, I mean, she wasn't a mountain rider or any of that kind of stuff, but it was something that, also, came into my life and was like an opportunity, to kind of open that door, and again, it just was a series of events really that all came together. That was, you got to do this, and I mean, I even look back at she questioned me at times. It's like, well, it's going to take you, a good 4 or 5 years till you feel comfortable. 2021, I was hunting with horses, my own horses.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and along with it, I dragged my hunting partner into it. That also didn't own horses at that time to go buy a horse.
So what was that first year like in the mountains? Because obviously there's that learning curve that you talked about. So what was that like, that first experience and being in the mountains with horses and just like, okay, here we go?
Well, I got to say, one part that made it really a little easier for me was, prior to all this, from 2004 until 2020, I experienced a lot of different hunts, hikes off the highway, fly-ins, jet boat, I long extended quad trips. There was a lot of different trips that I definitely experienced. So there was a lot of mountain miles that I was able to figure out. So the gist of like surviving back there, for me was pretty easy. Now I just added these 4-legged friends. Sometimes, were on the same page as me, and sometimes they were not. So that's where it really allowed me to concentrate on my horsemanship skills. And then be able to apply, what I was learning outside the mountains with the horses in there. So I obviously took on some smaller trips in the beginning just to make sure, I wasn't about to do a 5-day trail in, on my first year. And also I started out the very first year. I had 3 horses and my buddy had 1. So we had a total of 4 horses, so it made it manageable, so we kind of, took our baby steps, as you call it, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but the first trip was really great. It went really well, had some really good horses. And I just continued to feed the addiction, I guess you want to call it, as some people say, as horse owners, right? Like I just wanted more, and it was a great trip, but I wanted a bigger trip. I wanted the more extreme trip. I wanted the true adventure, I wanted the longer trip, more miles, more country, I wanted to see what was on the other side of that valley, what was down that valley, it just keeps, I mean, we all do it. It doesn't make a difference if you're on your feet or whatever. It's like, oh, what's on the other side of that ridge? Oh, maybe there's a bigger ram over there. Well, there's another bull. and especially with the way of the world now, our phones tell us there's better bulls on the other side of the valley. Now you just got to put your eyes on
Yeah.
them.
Talk a little bit about the opportunities that horseback hunting. So there's the downside too, right? There's, you've got it's a shitload more work, obviously, to look after your horses. You got to feed them, you got to take care of them, you got to hobble them, you got to do this, you got to do that. There's that part of it. And then, so talk about the challenges, and then talk to me a little bit about the benefits, like, the ability to go back and your experiences personally through that.
Yeah. So, I mean, for sure, you're absolutely, it does not stop. It doesn't make a difference if you're at home or you're in the mountains. They are like having a child, that you need to keep an eye on, some being more stubborn children than others, and that takes a fair bit of time and energy to get them where you want them to be, and it's in the condition that you want them to be, I was nowhere in my hunt this year. I was a lot going on this year. Didn't think I was going to get into the mountains. My horses were not in shape, and nor was I, but yet we pulled off and we went for 20 days. So, I mean, there's even more struggles with that, and we all know about that, even just doing a backpack hunt, where it's like, okay, you're not in shape, you can do this, but that the first 3 days are going to be not grand. But if you get through those 3 days, the fourth day, the pain and numbness will go away, and it'll all be great because you're going to maybe start seeing sheep. So it'll keep you going.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah. So the thing is that there. First things first, it's like, because, I mean, it's for me, not everybody, but I mean, they are an extension of my family. So, they're a big part of my life on a day to day. So it's now you're in the mountains with your friends, and it's weird that I don't know, maybe some of the older guides wouldn't want to admit it or not, but I think there's a dynamic that I've experienced where, as you venture away, you start to see that energy shift with your horses, where they kind of tend to lean on you a little bit more at times, and you become a group, and you become a team. And you're navigating things, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some asshole ones that just want to head back to the highway all the time, right? But, you have horses that really, truly do enjoy. I think they enjoy it, to the best of my. So it becomes like that wholehearted adventure, and they'll come out and they'll work that hard day for you. Sometimes they'll be a little bit slow, as some of us are coming up the hill sometimes, or our hunting partner's a little ahead of us or whatever. It's so that is a perk. But I mean, along with it, they're a lot of work. You're up early, you're grazing them, you're hobbling them, you're making sure they're fed. You're stressing. It's like no different than checking new territory out. Here we got our beautiful dehydrated meals that we know we got in our pack, but you're heading up this valley, and is there grass? Is there water? Because if there's no grass, then we can't stay. We got to keep going until there's grass, or if there's grass, you might only have enough grass for a day. So that adds another complication too, is that you need to make sure the groceries are out there for them. And that's been a learning curve for me too, is, we've all been through our learning curves of getting our physical fitness where we want to be able to go out on a hunt. Well, then it's the whole dynamic of your horses. Are they too lean? Are they too heavy? Finding that ultimate weight so that when they go in, they can perform the way you need them to perform.
Yeah, man, a lot of dynamics, a lot of moving parts there for sure. So now, what you said, it was 2020 that you did that first horseback trip?
2021 was the first. 2021, first official trip. Yeah.
And you bought your own string, like you had your own horses for that.
I owned I think more than that. I took 3 horses of my own horses for that first trip. Yeah.
So I still don't understand what bought you to buy the horses. Was it because of your partner at the time?
She was a gateway, I guess you want to call it, being a horse person that got it going. And it was kind of one of those things where, we had this relationship that was going, and then she's like, oh, you should buy a horse. And I'm like, yeah, I would really like that. It's been something that I've been really wanting to do for a long time. you know, and I was still a little bit like hesitant, you know, and living down here, and it was pretty fucking scary. You know, it's like, where do I learn? You know, it's like you can jump on a quad and figure it out. But yeah, so yeah, I bought a horse, and so I think I bought that first horse, I think about May, and I think by about of 2020, and I think before the summer ended, I think I bought another 3 or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And it was then, shortly after that you bought a bunch of yearlings and decided as a new horseman that you were going to start training yearlings to go to the mountains.
Correct.
Like, what were you thinking?
like to give you an idea, this year I took, well, I've got 3 5-year-olds this year. They're 5 years old. So they would have been born the year in 2020. And I took 2 of them to the mountains this year. Well, it's their second year to the mountains. And so, yeah, bought them as untouched yearlings.
That's cool. Now, how many?
A lot of great support from some really great friends. I'm not saying I did it all, because I did not. So, you know, I've had some really great mentors that have assisted me along the way, that have been able to help me kind of gain the knowledge that I needed to be able to make the trips happen.
How many horses did you take into the mountains this year on your string?
Oh, we only took 5.
Okay.
Yeah, we went super light.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's actually, before I want to talk about the business, before we go there, touch a little bit about, have you been successful on horseback and taking a ram? And like, I know you've talk about that. I want to know what it's like to.
I have not. Okay, so I have not shot a ram with horses yet, but I've.
So that's not very good. Your track record's not very good, then, buddy.
Well, you know, I was on a trip last year that we were able to be successful. I helped a good friend of mine, which I would call a brother from another mother, connect on his first ram.
Nice.
You know,
nice.
And then my other hunting buddy got a ram as well. So, I mean, as a collaborative group, I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, that's really good odds. Yeah, I'm teasing you.
And I will say that they were both 9 and 10-year-old rams.
Nice.
Excellent.
Nice. So, just as a segue, curious, to me, like horseback hunting, it would be tremendous for those big, gnarly moose that you see, and they're like 2 miles away, and it's like, have you done any moose hunting with them? Because
I haven't got. I mean, well, I guess. I mean, every trip could be a moose hunt. You know, in many ways, you have to obviously be very clear with your hunting partners of, you know, we're riding in and you see that moose, you know, you don't shoot them, you know, because that's the end of the trip. You know, for sure, it's definitely on the books. You know, I've got more horses coming. The problem is that they're not small animals, and you need, you know, depending on how in the terrain and where you're at and how far you're away from the highway or an airstrip or a river, to, you know, maybe get something to help you out, to get some meat out. You know, you need a good, you know, you need a good 3-4 horses for a moose of a good size. You know, if you got some miles to go, right? So yeah, right. Currently, I guess my trailer only holds 5, so I'm limited to 5. You know, but you know, the goal is, you know, by next year I'll have essentially a string of 8 that I can take.
Awesome, very cool.
So maybe a couple trailers. So I mean, it's definitely on the plan. Yeah.
There's been so many times I've seen a moose. I'm like, oh, if I only had a way to get that thing back to the road or to civilization. My goodness, they're just giants, and I think that'd be amazing with horses, right?
So. Oh, for sure. It's definitely on the bucket list, you know, and it'll happen here sooner than later. You know, I'm not too worried about it. I'm just, you know, there's a lot of things that have been going on in life. You know, 2020 was a wild year for all of us. You know, a lot of things changed. You know, and I think I've just kind of adapted the aspect of where we are, where we're supposed to be. Right. You know, and life takes us where we're supposed to be. You know, and that's kind of, you know, a little bit where I'm going after in life. You know, I don't yeah, I'm along for the adventure here to see where we all end up, and so far I'm pretty happy.
That's awesome. Yeah. We all want to be Tysen Bjorn, I'll be honest with you.
Oh, come on. I've struggled along the way. It's been a hard moment. I think, we all have our moments, and some of us learn a little harder than others.
Well, living life to its fullest, right? Which is pretty important too. And I think sheep hunters do that to an extreme. Like they are experiencing things that most people will never have the opportunity to. So, yeah, super cool. I want to talk about custom pack rigging. So,
yes.
Let's talk. So obviously you're kind of one of those guys that just dives in head first, clearly. So
I do everything. Yeah. Just, yeah. 2 feet.
So, yeah, exactly. So let's talk about your journey to that business. Obviously there was the interest in horses and you jumped in with both feet there.
Yeah.
And that, but talk about, why the business and a little bit more about that aspect of it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So at the end of the day, the gentleman that ran the business for 23 years out of Lillooet, Kelly Destraka, which was a pretty quiet man. And he admits that he was never one to get out there and as much, I got to know him, I would have been probably, 2020, 2021, I guess it was. Started to order up some gear. It was a hard website to come across because it was kind of tucked away, but I knew about the gear. I knew that it was built here in BC. Anyways, I tracked him down. I think I ended up having to leave a couple voicemails. I think he finally got back to me. And he was a man of a few words for sure. Didn't really talk too much. So I ordered some stuff, and then ordered some more stuff, and just kind of picking away. And that at that time in life, we would probably have been like 2022, I guess it would have been. I don't know how many horses I had at that time, but there was a lot of really great things going on in life for me. I was feeling really good about a lot of things. And he was down here visiting one of his sons that lived in Richmond at the time. And I met him at the gas station to pick up an order. And it was just, he had I think, one of his sons with him, and the wife was there and everything. And I don't know what kind of prompted me, but I was just like, if you're ever thinking about selling the company, then you give me a call. I'd be interested.
You're hilarious, man. Just out of the blue. I don't know what prompted me, but I just said, hey, if you want to sell the business, I'll buy it.
Yeah. And
oh my goodness.
And so I think that was early 2020. And then and then he double checked in with me. I think it was would have been about, I guess, the end of September of 2022. He wanted to check in and see how my horse hunt went. And it went well, and he goes, well, how serious were you with your comment about, buying the business? I'm like, well, no, I was serious, and then so anyways, we just kind of bullshitted a little bit, and he goes, oh, we should probably have a chat. And I said, yeah. So I said, well, I'm like, oh, we're headed up the back end of Lillooet there for, I think it was like the Thanksgiving long weekend to go for a deer hunt. And I said, oh, I'll stop in at the shop there on my way back. And anyway, so we poked our heads in there, and he had a bunch going on, and we kind of had a quick conversation, and he threw a number at me, I guess, and we needed to have a chat. And I said, well, yeah, I guess let me ponder it. And the typical thing, and business is not new to me, so it was okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. Let's maybe get some financials dragged up and kind of see what's coming included in the purchase price and all that kind of stuff, right? And so we were maybe there for an hour or whatever it was, and then that's where the conversation started. And but then I came to realize, that I was buying a legacy, really. And because as soon as I started to see the numbers of the business, I had to close the books. Because at the end of the day, it didn't make sense. And I also look at like Kelly, and and he did a great job. And I know that it was hard to get gear at times, and there was long waiting times and all that kind of stuff. But it just, he was getting on, and he's not that old. I would say he's just, I think he's 65 this year. But he ran it for 23 years, and so it was difficult, and so I just automatically, for whatever reason, envisioned the idea that I can do better. I can make this what it was. And it was the aspect of, a little bit of my own journey of, being where I was with the horses and what the horses really brought to my life, really at the end of the day, to allow me to live my best life at that moment. And then what else I could share this for other people, to help other people experience those same adventures, to be able to do that same job. May that be a person like myself or even like an outfitter, the aspect that they're able to operate their businesses in the best way, to be able to be that supply opportunity where they need stuff. Because in our packing world, there's not a lot of us that build gear, there's a couple stores that sell a thing or two, but not real gear. So yeah, I just closed the book, and I shook his hand and says, "We'll get her done."
You are not one to let fear and common sense hold you back.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, there's been things I've done in life that you got to take something away from them all and learn something and move forward, right? So yeah, so in three seasons, I've done my best to improve the product, streamline the manufacturing, improve the product, and basically, I mean, we're not quite Amazon, but I can get stuff out within a week.
That's awesome.
A lot of times, and going into my fourth season, even better again, and now working on our own product lines and stuff. Like last year, I launched a wool pack pad line that did really well. There was a lot of success. There was a lot of people that were quite happy with it. Some new improvements on the product again to make it better again, including some riding pad options, and it's just, here's another little tidbit of things that, I want to work on to expand the business. And so that, my goal, I guess, at the end of the day, what all kind of came to be is that I want custom packaging to grow to be the brand. Like, if you are enjoying the mountains, it doesn't make a difference if you're hunting, if you're camping, if you're even just going out for a day ride, that we are the brand that can supply you with tack that will withstand the elements of the mountains.
That's awesome, man. Talk about some of your custom gear. So you talked about the wool blankets. I know you do custom pack boxes. Talk about some of the different items that you guys are carrying.
I mean, we did the boxes last year. I mean, at the end of the day, that kind of still, I mean, that's, I have to be careful, obviously, because our clientele are worldwide and not everybody is a hunter, right? So, and I respect that. But again, my passion, my love is hunting, and it's also, so, and the societies, and yeah, I had this great idea last year that we did custom boxes for both BC, Alberta, and down in Reno, with getting the logos casted inside the boxes to kind of create some, special gear, that only can be won or auctioned off, or I guess essentially purchased at an auction to hopefully, raise some good money for sheep on the hill, Again, that's just the passion side of being able to do my part. I mean, I guess that's too, like, now owning custom pack rigging, even though I was a member before, that I'd show up to Kamloops and I'd buy some raffle tickets, I'd buy some drinks, I'd throw some money around where I could, but it was pretty minimal in the grand scheme of it all. And now with custom pack rigging, and our horse community is small, but I want to do what we can to get that money back to you guys, and along with other societies as well.
Well, I just go down a bit of a road here, but the support you've shown us, and your products, you show up at the expo, your donations, the support you've given. And then we look at our good friends over at Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta and the Wild Sheep Foundation down in Reno, and it's very, very noticed. It's very appreciated, and I don't know how, if you listen to the podcast much at all, Tysen, but we talk lots on here about our sheep community, right? Like, and BC, we're really lucky, really blessed, whatever you want to call it, in the Tysons of the world and the Omers of the world and the Tanners of the world and the Adam Yankees and a million others. Like, I'm not singling them out. Those names come up a lot, but everyone's got this bigger vision about our community. We're the Wild Sheep Society BC, but it's much bigger than that. It's about conservation, and it's about community. It's about having a common goal, moving together, and you're right in the heart of that. And you just inserted yourself. You're like, okay, I'm here to stay, and it's pretty awesome. And you do it beyond our borders too. You don't, and that's great. I am 100% believer, and we need to work collectively all together. I think that's one of the biggest threats to hunting and our greater, like, our values, is that we're not sticking together. We need to collaborate. And I feel like it's the people that make the difference. It's the Tysons of the world that are making the difference. And if we start losing little pieces of that, then we start getting really kind of wonky, because they're like, no, that's part of our community. Like, we need we need all these people, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I again, maybe touching, and this is where that initial, like, I guess, desire to get into horses. It was like, is the past. And we are, I guess there's a little bit of it all where we, in some ways, this is a dicey one. In some ways, we're losing, parts of our world and and where we came from, our roots. We look at what, how Canada came to be Canada, and that's, I guess there's a part of it where, and that's where the horse side really drove me, was, that's what they did 100 years ago, and it's like every time I get on a trail and throw my leg over, I'm going back in time. Granted, I've got some fancier new gear, but we're not on a quad. I mean, we're not on a jet boat. We're not on a plane. I mean, granted, those are all great things, and I'm not going to knock them, but it's just somewhere in life here, I feel as a person, we're losing our ways. And so there's and then we have to adapt and we have to grow, because we don't want to end up being those people. But like, somewhere we got to hang on to something, and it's something also that we need to share with our kids. And that there's another one that we can stem off, is that what we've been talking on the backside, is getting the youth back into horses and packing, and opening up the doors for ladies, which are breaking their way into the hunting community, and want to be recognized as equals, for sure, absolutely, and what not more than in the horse world side, and opening doors up for people to do this. Like, you kind of commented, you're right. It's like, I jumped into this, 2 feet, and not everybody would. But it can be done. But now, why not be in the position I am to be able to help people do that? And I can help them, by putting on events, getting good people together, supplying them with good gear. And it's not just about, the sales side, but it's about supplying and setting up people up for success. It's no other than our good friend Omer, like what he gives back to the society, and how many people go on about how he helps them get set up with the equipment they need to be able to experience their trips. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to rent my horses out, so that's not an option. So you got to buy your own horses. Yeah.
You mentioned the word in there, and we talk a little bit about women and youth and creating new opportunity and excitement around it. And you mentioned the word earlier, and Hannah jumped on it too. You said legacy. Talk about legacy. What does that mean? Talk a little bit about what that means to you and how it pertains to the horse side of things.
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, there's not a lot, I guess. There's not a lot that I've been able to dig up about custom pack rigging. Originally there was a gentleman by the name of Abe that started up the original design. He was the creator of it all, and then Kelly took over. So, I mean, the great thing about these events, I get a chance to get a chat with some of these old boys, and, I've come to meet people that knew Abe, that bought gear off Abe, and, and I guess for sure. I mean, I can say that we're not been the gear for everybody either. Everybody has their ups and downs. Got into quite the conversation with a gentleman down in Reno, about it. He was very set in his ways, and that we didn't know how to pack, us Canadians. But anyways, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing, that there's the legacy of just being able to go out and enjoy those adventures. I mean, the wonderful thing about packing is that there's no right way or wrong way. If you get back to the highway and you got all your horses and you got all the hunters you left with, or your buddies you left with, and nobody got airlifted out. I mean, it's a good trip. You learn some things. You might not do things again, but I guess, yeah. I mean, it's just keeping our old ways. I mean, we all look back, and we have so many different. The world of social media now obviously allows people to share photos on the current base, but we have all these old photos that keep coming up, like you're saying earlier, the jeans and running shoes, holding the ram and a half, and it's like, but you look back at it all and go, well, for so many of those people back there, those are all horseback hunts.
Right.
A lot of them, and you look at the north, where so many of us are drawn to go chase sheep, especially stones, right? You have generations of outfitters and outfitter families that have basically, cut in trails, or that have allowed us to enjoy these adventures. I mean, you don't even need to be a horse hunter. You can be just a hiking off the highway. What kind of trail you hiking in on? Horse trail?
100%.
Right? If there's a horse trail, there's probably animals, because they wouldn't have cut a horse trail in a valley that didn't have animals.
Yeah.
100%.
So, that was the beginning. And we can't forget that,
Mm-hmm.
And as, things become more and more difficult in our world, as we lose rights and we aren't able to do things that we were able to do yesterday, well, then we have to be able to adapt, and maybe do things a little harder. If they make things more difficult for us, well, how much do you want to enjoy that? How much do you want that adventure? Are you willing to go to the end? They maybe, they cut back on vehicle restrictions. They maybe don't let us fly into certain areas or run jet boats in certain areas. Well, are you going to continue to push and grind and find ways?
Yeah. Well said.
There is something so incredibly nostalgic and historic about doing a pack trip with horses. And I think, to add to your point, in the fast pace of today's world, it's borderline therapeutic to go on a horseback hunt, where everything is slowed down. All of the decisions that you make are crucial to the well-being of yourself and your animals. And I think it's amazing, Tysen, that you are working so hard to preserve that type of hunt and sort of that lifestyle.
Well, it is, and then it goes back to that 365. A lot of people that I know go, man, you got a lot on the go, and you do, I do. but it comes back to, it's the horses on the, I don't get a chance to be with my horses on the daily, but I'm there every second day, with my living situation now. But I look at what they do for me all year round to keep that balance, not just in the backcountry, and I don't want to be whatever about it, but it's true. There's a lot of it in you'll get into the horse world of the therapeutic side of what they bring to people. I mean, the boarding facility that I run in Fort Langley, I've got 3 different groups of boarders there that put on different therapy programs with their horses, ranging from children to troubled teens to a first responder research program that's going on. It's and the thing is that you don't really think about it so much, and then you're out there and you're like, oh, this is, or you can have a really stressful day and you're like, oh, somehow the stresses just alleviate and they disappear.
If you've got a good horse, yes.
This is true. Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Well, any horse will poke holes right through you.
Do either of you guys listen to Corp Lund, by the way? Just curious.
Absolutely.
No. Okay, I was wondering because his song "Cows Around" it is very applicable. You just need to insert horses instead of cows into the lyrics there. But,
well, I mean that's all. I mean that's all. I don't want to keep going on about the same thing, but we're losing our ways.
Right.
Yes.
And we're losing the point. And that's, maybe I'm going to touch on something. It's like, I'm going to be, first of all, on 2 sides of it. First of all, in our busy lives, I try to do a little bit more to share the custom pack rigging story through social media. I'd like to make more posts. I'd like to do more things, but it just hasn't come to be, and I'll be honest, I'm not that person. Never have been, and maybe the generation, that I was born, we didn't grow up with the social media, it was the enjoyment of whatever you did was for yourself. And like you said earlier, your friend that shared a picture, it was like your close friends where you got together and you had a beer, or you had a coffee or a tea or a soda, whatever you drank, and you shared that story and you got together as friends, and that's another thing we lose in today's world. I mean, how many times do you pick up the phone and you talk to your friend, but you'll have a conversation forever long and you'll text them throughout the day, and I mean, and there's some great things where social media, I think, has done some great things in some ways, but, I think we've also lost a little bit of why we do what we do. Are we doing it for ourselves or are we doing it for the social media aspect?
That's a rabbit hole you could dive down.
Yeah, we're not gonna get into that one. No, it's but I mean, I guess that's just a little bit about, I guess, the wonders, I think, that with the business and what the kind of clientele that we go after and what we're trying to hang on to, and I'm not saying that, the end of the day you want to come out and post your pictures and share your story. That's great, especially if there's some great background shots and we can see where you shot that ram and gives you an idea and you're like, oh yeah, I've been there, or not, or give you some ideas,
Yeah, awesome, great dialogue here. So let's talk about, I know, on that thought about the next generation and also legacy. Let's talk about your son Jeremy and what that means to you, because he's jumped in with, he's a both feeder too. He's jumped in with both feet. That guy he's like 12 going on 17 or 70. Like he is an old soul through and through, man. Like I talk to that guy and I feel like this kid is like, he's like so much smarter than me, and he's just like listening to me. He's very polite, very nice, but he's just like, you can tell he's like so far ahead of me. Like I have no idea who I'm even talking to. He's a legend.
Yeah, no, he's doing well. I mean, he's still 12. He still has his worries and concerns about some things. I mean, that's my own thing there is being a father, and we see our children, as they grow up, and he lives a little different life than I grew up in. And, currently I'm not able to provide him that same kind of environment as I grew up, but I mean, there's kids today that they need, maybe having the opportunities of being exposed to the elements of nature, to that experience, I think is important. I see it with my son itself. He has his moments where he gets anxious about things, and we joke about it, and I'm like, we're always just like, well, we'll figure it out later. And he goes, what do you mean we'll figure it out later? I'm like, we're not going to worry about it right now. We'll figure it out later. And as a kid, he was always like, Dad, if I'm on top of a mountain and I fall off, are you going to grab me? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Or, he always has these scenarios of these moments of a little bit stress. And I obviously we're all concocted a little differently, but I keep getting him out there and keep exposing him, and trying to gain some confidence for him. So that, I mean, he talks a good talk, but sometimes, when you put him in the hot seat, he starts shaking. He starts shaking a little bit. But I mean, he's only 12, right? So, yeah.
Cut him a little slack. Yeah,
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay, so a couple things I want to touch on here, and before we wrap up. First of all, so you are a sponsor of the horsebacking competition at the Northern Fundraiser.
Yes.
We talked about that. Let's just share a little bit with our listeners and why they should actually be involved. And then we're doing it a bit different this year too, in that you're going to have the horse at your booth. You're going to have the gear there. So if somebody's interested, it's kind of an opportunity to come play around and maybe even, learn a little bit, and they could throw their name in the ring as part of the competition as well.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to basically call it for what it is. So for a while that I've been involved or been around, it's kind of turned into a little bit of a drunken and disorderly event, the horsebacking situation, and which is all well and great. It's near the end of the night, and I'm not, whatever, each having their fun however they want. So, but I think there's more to it. And I think that, communicating with you, I've got some other support, some other, resident horse hunters where, it would be nice to make it something more than it is, rather than just like a little bit of a sloppy one at the end of the night, because I think there's a lot more there. So for sure, and Brad from Pokiak, he's on the same page as myself and trying to make it something more than it is, and so, yeah, absolutely. The horse is going to be kind of set up there, if people want to practice, people want to get interested, they want to ask questions, whatever it is, we're there. I do these events, and obviously I have my gear, but I'm not there to take orders, other than, some of our swag that we're selling to raise money for conservation, but as far as I'm not there to take orders, you want to talk about gear, you want to talk about an adventure, you want to talk about a problem, that's what I'm there. I'm there to meet people, communicate, and just shake hands and make some friends. So, or you got somebody that, my kids, or I've never got into it. Like, how do I get into it? And start helping put people together.
Yeah, so it is a fun event. It's a blast, and some great prizes. It's a great time. Cheap to enter. So,
yeah.
So if you want more information, so it's at the Northern Fundraiser.
Yep.
We're looking at expanding and doing possibly some other venues down the road. We've talked a little bit about doing it at our Salute to Conservation. It won't happen in 2026, but we're looking at how we can sort of continue to build on this and create more awareness as a community. But for anyone that's interested, and if you're at the Northern Fundraiser, we recommend you sign up. It'd be great. And it's if you go to wildsheepsociety.com and then /pack horse. And there's information on there. There's some photos. You can sign up for it. And it's just a good time. It's $100 to enter. And you can win some really cool prizes. And And, again, hats off to you, Tyson, Custom Pack Rigging, to Brad at over at Pokiak for underwriting this, for sponsoring it. 8 Seconds has been involved over the years as well.
Yep.
And it's a fun opportunity. What it does, creates awareness around horseback hunting and getting out there. So yeah, check it out. And
the biggest thing is that I know there's a lot of horse hunters that are in the room that don't put their best foot forward, or put a foot forward, should I say, and throw a diamond. We all have good ones, we all have bad ones, but it's all for a good reason, and like you said, there's some great prizes at the end of it all. But let's all come together as a horse community, and do our part, do our thing and have some fun doing it, and maybe being a little bit more organized with it on all fronts, so that, it's promoted properly and so on and so forth, that it can be a little bit of a growing event.
I love it. Do you want to, we've talked a lot about some different ideas we've had and things that we could maybe do around this. Do we want to sort of brainstorm a little bit in front of our listeners here on some of the opportunities out there, or are we want to hear some ideas from people that they might want to see? We're just trying to create enthusiasm around horseback hunting and that community, and again, that community spirit, right? We've got a leader in this, in what you do, and you believe in it. You've got a strong presence within the society, and we want to grow that. And so I don't know if we want to share any thoughts. I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but anything you want to share, I'd love to hear about it. So,
well, absolutely. I mean, first of all, I'm always open to anything. Anybody wants to give us a call and have a chat about whatever it is, or even pick us apart about our product. I keep telling people, I'm like, I can't make things better if you don't give me some feedback, right? So unfortunately, there's not a lot of people that phone me and complain, so it makes it a little difficult. But there's been a lot of different conversations going, and it's like, I've got my own little journey that I've got to be where I'm at, and I don't, there's got to be other people that are maybe in the same shoes, and so my thought is that being able to work with you guys on your events to be able to open those doors, and Hannah and I have been talking about the kid, getting the youth, and opening up, and possibly being involved with one of your guys' camps, or amalgamating a camp together, in multiple different angles, there's obviously the woman's side of things. And and let's not forget about the guys. There's guys out there that maybe the wife owns a horse. They got a couple of horses, but they're not doing it, and they want to, or whatever. There's options, but we need to have people speak up, so that we can tailor and build opportunities.
Yeah, well said. Just touch a little bit on the importance of that next generation on youth and getting the youth involved, and you can touch on the women's side of it too. Obviously, that introducing them more to what we're doing here, but let's focus a little bit on youth and sort of your vision for that moving forward, and how crucial that is.
Well, I think it's just in our hunting community, right? How many times where there's stories of, I went out with my dad, or I went out with my grandfather, and it was just, even if it was a pickup hunt, it's like, I'm going to go out and shoot some grouse, hunting is passed on in generations, may that be us residential hunters, or we have our outfitters, we have so many outfits that are generational run, or maybe, they're maybe not running their great grandfather's property, but they're running another outfit, and they're proud to be outfitters, which is not obviously an easy one. They're not getting rich anytime soon, and they got long, hard days. So yeah, again, it's just continue on with our past, and it's grandfathers or dads taking their kids out, and it doesn't make a difference, boy or girl, just getting them exposed and giving them something else in their toolbox in life. They might not They might not end up being a hunter, or they might not end up being a horse hunter or a horse, whatever the situation is. But it's something that they've done in life, and they got a chance to experience it, and it just kind of puts it in the back of their mind.
Awesome. 100%. Yeah. Every time you talk, I keep thinking legacy, keeping this going. Right. And, hang on,
it's no different than the Sheep Society.
Right.
At the end of the day, we are all part of this society to keep the legacy of us and sheep on the hill.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And we know at the end of the day that if we don't fight for it and we don't do things, it won't be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Yeah. We all have a personal responsibility for all of that, for sure. And if we don't take it personally, if everyone was doing what Tysen Bjorn was doing for horse hunting, and it'd be,
well, we'd have too many horse hunters on the hill. That'd be a bad thing.
That'd be a problem. Exactly. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, we've talked a lot about a number of things today. Anything we're missing? What else do we got to touch on, or anything that you want to highlight? Obviously, for anyone that's listening that's interested in hunting by horse, or anyone that certainly has a string or needs any gear, how do they look you up? What do they need to do?
Well, obviously custompackragging.com. We're also on Instagram. We're on Facebook. The good old telephone works too. I do answer it. I do answer it. It doesn't go to a voicemail. I guess sometimes if I'm busy, but yeah, we can have a chat. We can have a conversation. You can email me, orders at custompackragging.com. But anyways, all the information's on the website. We uploaded a new website this last January. It was a big improvement. There's some changes I'm working on again to streamline it a little bit better again. Always kinks, working things out. Some new products, some more pictures. Also, as far as our clients go, like I was saying earlier, I'm not great at taking pictures and creating content. So I'd love to share your stories, and your adventures, tag us, I'll reshare, whatever the situation is. It's nothing more that I enjoy is being able to see our clients out there enjoying, the outdoors.
That's awesome. Okay. Talk me through, I'm an aspiring, backcountry guy that wants to get a pack string and go in the country, but I don't know where to start. I don't know anything. I don't even know if I'd like it. What do I do? How do I get started?
That's a hard one, right? It's all or nothing.
Yeah.
You got to jump in, right? It's like, because it's like, there's the horsemanship side that makes it a little difficult, because, the success of your trip comes down to your foundation of your ability. So, if you don't understand the basics of how to navigate that horse out there, then it's going to go bad. Right? So, depending on where you are in the province, or the country, that is, latching on to, there's a lot of good cowboys out there that will share their stories and some of their adventures and teach you a thing or two, right? Some of it can be very arena driven, that you're like, oh, how am I going to apply this in the mountains? But it all comes together, so that's the first and foremost is make some cowboy friends, right? Learn a thing or two, what a lot of these true cowboys, and then a lot of these trainers now, they come from being a true cowboy in the mountains, which at the end of the day is no different than going hunting. They're navigating the same kind of complexities that we do in many different ways. So I think that would be the first step, is get some horse experience. See if it's your thing. Horses are not for everyone. They can turn you sideways. And be prepared. You're gonna get bucked off. You're gonna end up with some big bruises. You're gonna maybe break a leg, maybe an arm, maybe lose fingers, feeling in your hands.
We're trying to market this. We're trying to market this. Yeah.
It's not. I don't know. It's not for the faint of heart.
Type 2 fun, eh?
Well, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, but it all goes along with it at the end of the day, right? I mean, I think that's what makes it so fun is that you just never know what could all happen. I mean, yeah, it's like you never know what ram is gonna walk out, from behind that rock.
Yeah. Brilliant. I'm keeping you off my sales team. That's all I'm saying right now.
Well, no. There's a lot of great things. I think I can stand for. I mean, a lot of us sheep hunters per se, or avid hunters. At the end of the day, is that there's some grit involved,
mm-hmm.
and there's no can't. It's again a scenario that I have to remind my son of a lot of times is that Kent doesn't live here, and it's like, so if you have that grit and grind and you want to make it happen, you got to find ways and you got to push for it, right?
You have to be willing to accept some suffering.
Oh yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's no different than you want to backpack off the highway, you're gonna have some suffering,
I'm razzing you too. Like, obviously, people that are attracted to that lifestyle that's the type of adventure they're looking for. That's why they're doing it. That's what makes it special.
I can't remember what year it was or whatever it was. I was trailing in somewhere and I passed some backpackers and they were like, "Oh, it must be nice being on those horses. It must make it easy." I just laughed. I just laughed. Yeah, I just laughed.
That's awesome. What do we got left? Anything else to touch on? Hannah, anything else?
I think we need a Tysen Bjorn custom pack rigging pack clinic. That's what we need.
Well, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, that's definitely in the future. I'd like to collaboratively put that together. I've got some, at the end of the day, here I am. I'm 5 years in, or 5 and a bit years in. I don't have 20 years of knowledge. I'll be honest. I in my whole mountain experiences hunting, it doesn't make a difference what animal, what way. I've never had an old boy kind of take me under their wing. I had an opportunity this year. A good friend and a client of mine invited me out on an opportunity to take me out, and I said to him, like, "Wow, I've never actually gone to the mountains with somebody that had experience."
And that man has a wealth of knowledge. That guy you went with.
And the thing is that everything I've done is by the seat of my pants. So the thing is that I'd like to be able to put on events. That kind of comes back to like people having some interest, because I've got, along with this business, has now come is a group of friends. The friends that I make. It's huge. And there's a lot of people that share that same kind of passion, and they want to share, right? So it wouldn't be just a Tysen Bjorn pack clinic. It would be like, and friends, it would be a group of people, because everybody's got something to come in and say. I mean, I was having a conversation last year with a gentleman that he's, I think 80, I think he was 82 years old. I wrote his name down, I got his number. So he can hardly walk. But he still packs, and he still goes to the mountains and hunts. His son and his grandson take him out, and they deal with all the horses, and he can still ride, but he can hardly walk. But he's out there, right? And he goes, if you ever put a clinic on, he goes, I can't stand very long, but I can sit all day and I tell stories, and I can yell at you and tell you what you're doing wrong when you're saddling up that horse or whatever. I thought that'd be great, and just to be able to have like an old boy like that at an event, just to have a conversation with, and there's a lot to learn from those guys that have the miles they have under them.
Man, awesome. Well, sir, thank you for being part of our community. Thank you for all you do. Really excited about what we got going this winter. And for our listeners, sign up for the Northern. Sign up for the packing, horse packing competition. It's going to be great. So wildsheepsociety.com/pack horse. And, we got a great event planned for you. Tyson's going to be there. I heard that you were buying whiskey for anyone that was coming by the booth.
Oh, are we allowed to do that? Are we allowed to do that? Am I allowed to have a whiskey barrel on tap?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're okay with it. That's grounds for dismissal up there. Oh my goodness, they're strict with us. So, yeah, we'll can't wait for this winter. Really looking forward to it. And appreciate all you do, brother. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and thanks for being part of our community.
Well, thank you for the invite, and also I appreciate the support as well. Yeah.